Tenants in Florida are suing over a state law that requires tenants accused of not paying rent to pay the total amount owed into the court registry before they can proceed with their eviction appeal. But landlords say that would open the opportunity for bad tenants to abuse the situation. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over a state law in the state of Florida that requires a tenant, if they want to appeal their eviction case due to non-payment of rent, to actually pay into the court registry the total amount that they owe their landlord. Now, obviously, I've talked about a similar law. I believe it was proposed in Ohio, and I think it's a great idea. I think it will, weed out all of those people who are filing frivolous appeals, just trying to extend the amount of time that they get to stay in their unit before they finally do get evicted. And it's a good thing, and I would like to see it passed in more parts of the country. Apparently, Florida is the only full state that has this sort of law in place. So, yeah, The tenants, they don't like it, though. Of course they don't like it. I mean, I don't blame them for not liking it, because it makes it very difficult to appeal the fact that, hey, we're getting evicted for non-payment of rent. But the thing is, right, if you owe the rent, if you owe that rent money, you have to pay it back if you do truly owe it. Right now, if you don't owe the money, then that's another story. Maybe there's something else going on, so I think that in 99% of cases, if a landlord is filing it because you owe them rent, it's not for any other reason other than you owe them. So maybe you should at least have the ability to pay them back the money that you owe. That's my opinion, but I think most landlords are going to agree with me there. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What would you think of a law proposed in your city or state or jurisdiction, wherever you're investing, right, that required, if a tenant wanted to appeal an eviction for non-payment of rent, for them to come up with the total amount of money that they owe you, okay? I mean, what do you think? This is a good idea or a bad idea? Do you think it hurts the rights of the tenants? Do you think it's not fair? If you are a tenant, what do you think of that? Okay, my big gripe is, hey, let's say that you are a tenant and you're fighting against this eviction for non-payment of rent. Well, if you don't have the money to actually pay back, that's owed, what's your argument here? You're being evicted for not paying. You don't have the money, so you can't pay. It doesn't make any sense to me that anybody would really be fighting this sort of eviction. But, obviously in a lot of places, people do fight it. And they come up with these excuses. Oh, well, I lost my job. Listen, it's not the landlord's fault that you lost your job. It's not the landlord's fault that the rental assistance money didn't come through. Okay, the landlord still has to pay their bills regardless of what happens in your personal life. Okay, the landlord still has a right to their property regardless of what happens in your personal life. If you lost your job, that's on you. It's on you, not on the landlord. Okay, just like if you lost your job and you can't make your car payment, do you really think the car loan place is going to be, oh well, he lost his job, so therefore he doesn't have to pay his car payment this month? No, they're going to come and they're going to repossess your car. Okay, or do you think the grocery store is going to hand out you free? Oh well, he lost his job, so here's some free food. No. Okay. And it shouldn't be that way for landlords either. But they got it in their minds that somehow landlords aren't a business like these other places. Well, that's stupid, and I disagree with that. But anyway, let's get into this article. It's coming from TampaBay.com, and it says, for Florida renters, or for Florida tenants, fighting eviction comes at a price. One tenant in Tampa is challenging the constitutionality of part of Florida's eviction law. And let's get into it. They go into more detail, just in case I got some of my details a little bit off. But anyway, let's go. A lifelong renter in Tampa neighborhood may spark an overhaul of Florida's eviction law if she wins in court. Elizabeth Dorado has lived in the same house for 30 years. She raised her 2 children there, so when her landlord filed to evict her in December 2019, she chose to fight it. In order to prove that she had always paid her rent on time and kept the property in good shape, Dorado, 64, first had to pay $3,000. I was shocked, Dorado said. Since I work paycheck to paycheck, it was really hard. I was a nervous wreck. Under Florida law, tenants accused of failing to pay rent must pay whatever amount their landlord says they owe into the court registry before they can proceed with their eviction case. If the tenant doesn't pay within 5 business days, the case defaults in favor of the landlord. Yeah, I like the way that is, works out. Okay, so the landlord files eviction. If they can't pay the amount they owe within 5 days, they'll, guess what, defaults to the landlord. Okay, that speeds up the process, makes it so the landlord doesn't have to have some tenant stuck in their unit for, even longer than they've already been in there without paying rent. Okay. Those in favor of the law say that without it, delinquent tenants may try to stall an eviction while living rent-free. But housing rights advocates contend that the statute creates a pay-to-play system which prevents poor people from seeking justice. Florida is the only state in the country where tenants must pay before they're given an initial eviction hearing. Dorado's case has the potential to change that. Yeah, of course the tenant advocates are saying that nonsense, okay? They are going to try to push anything to extend the amount of time possible that this person is staying there for rent-free. So if you look in places like California where they've got all these tenant protections and where, getting through the eviction process takes so long, well, that's exactly what happens when you don't have a law like this in place, okay? You have, tenants staying for months and months without paying any extra rent, with no, intention of paying even the back rent that they owed before the case was filed. And it's ridiculous, okay? If the person owes rent, just get them out. Get them out, okay? If they have no ability to pay, they need to go. Dorado, who works as a home health aide, was able to borrow the money she needed from one of her clients, allowing her to move forward with the case. In April, her attorney, Ryan Torrens, filed a motion asking the circuit court judge in Hillsborough County to overturn the statute that requires tenants to pay into the registry. No Floridian should be required by law to pay an admission ticket costing thousands of dollars to gain access to the courthouse doors, the motion states. This is precisely what Florida Statute 83.62 does, and as a result, the statute violates the Florida Constitution's guarantee of access to courts, as well as the Due Process Clause of the federal Constitution. Well, I disagree, okay? So here's the main thing, right? You're saying no Floridian should be required to pay thousands of dollars. Well, no Floridian is required to pay thousands of dollars, in order to get to the courts, right? What is required, though, is that you honor the contract that you signed, that you agreed to pay thousands of dollars in rent. So all you're really doing is putting forth the money that you owe. You're not, there's no price of admission here, okay? It's the money that you owe to this landlord already. That's the whole point behind the case. You have no ability to pay it back, so what are you fighting for? That's what the courts are saying. It's like, well, if you don't have the ability to pay, this money back, then, what are you fighting for? And in a lot of cases, it's not thousands of dollars either, okay? Some evictions are filed over a few $100s, okay? But regardless of what the amount is, if you don't have the ability to pay it back, then you don't have a case. Dorado's landlord, Sandra Consuegra, declined to comment for this story, though her attorney, through her attorney. The Florida Apartment Association, an industry group for multifamily housing providers, also declined to comment, citing pending litigation. Lawrence Silvestri is a commercial real estate attorney in St. Petersburg who has represented residential landlords in eviction proceedings. He said the statute helps protect landlords. Even with this provision, the landlord is probably going to lose 1 or 2 months of rent, he said. In states where they don't have this, it could take 6 months or more of loss before you get a tenant out. Overturning the statute, he said, would open the door for bad tenants to take advantage of the system while helping relatively few tenants with legitimate defenses. And that is what it really comes down to, okay? Bad tenants, ones who had no intention of paying, no ability of paying, would be helped. They would be allowed to stay for 4, 5, 6 months, who knows, maybe even a year longer. And that's what we see in places like California, okay? And that's what they don't want to happen here in Florida. Instead of these people moving on, moving to a place they can afford, they are sitting here in this, in your unit, and you're just stuck with them. You're paying all your legal fees. You're paying all this defense. They're probably giving free lawyers to the tenants to help them fight the case that they owe thousands of dollars. And and they're giving their sob story. Oh, I lost my job because of COVID. These sob stories are irrelevant. Okay, irrelevant, because simply put, whether you lost your job because of COVID or because you got drunk and got fired, it doesn't matter. You owe the landlord money every single month, and if you can't pay that bill, then you need to get the heck out of that house and let the landlord rent it out to someone who can pay. So yeah, interesting article. I'm not surprised they're suing at all. I do hope that they lose, of course, and I would love to see a law like this passed throughout the country, because this is the sort of protections that landlords need, okay, in order to prevent us from having to go through ridiculously long eviction cases and sit in court and pay ridiculous, outrageous lawyer fees, okay? I paid thousands of dollars the last eviction I went through. It was not cheap. And then they tore up my unit on top of that, so I had to do thousands of dollars worth of repairs on top of that. I mean, think about the property owners out there who are just getting hammered by these tenants who are taking advantage of the system before you pass, stupid laws.